Do audiophile power chords make a difference? That's the topic we're going to be talking about in today's video. Hey folks, I'm Gene Delasala with Audioholics, and you guys have been asking me to talk about power chords for a while now. You know I've been debunking the myths in speaker cables, talking about interconnects and HDMI cables. I've always kind of shied away from talking about power chords because, quite frankly, they're the least interesting thing to talk about when it comes to audio cables. And to give you the straight answer now, I'm not going to make you wait this whole video. Power chords do not make a difference. They do not improve the fidelity of your audio gear, regardless of what a manufacturer tells you or a glorified audio reviewer tells you, because it's a lot of hearsay. So let me explain why that's the case. First of all, power chords do not transmit audio signal, unlike a speaker cable that's transmitting audio signal. A power cord's full function, its only purpose, is to transfer power from your wall outlet over to your component, whether it be an amplifier or a preamplifier or a source component. Its full function is to transfer that power, hopefully without any major losses. And that's really what we're talking about with power chords. We have to have the right gauged power cord. It has to be able to handle the current demand for the product it attaches to. So what matters most in power chords, kind of like speaker cables, is resistance. Lower gauge is better. But here's the problem. Many of these audiophile power chords, they don't always tell you what the gauge of the power cord is. In fact, most of them don't even have a UL certification on them. And to me, that's a problem, because when you go and you buy an audio component and it's certified UL, it has certified fire safety, and it comes with an OEM cord, you'll see there's a little UL marking on the power cord. You don't see this happen with these audiophile power cords. In fact, most of them don't have UL certification. Most of them don't submit their power cords to UL, and they don't even tell you if it even meets the fire safety standards. So that would put off alarms to me. I wouldn't be putting something like that on my source components or my amplifiers, not knowing if these power cords are safe at the very minimum. And the only time I would tell you to change your power cord, 2 times actually. Number one is if your power cord that came with your supply or that came with your product, if it somehow broke or failed, or if somehow the cord is not long enough. So if you're putting all your components in a rack and you need to extend that cable between the component and your outlet, at that point, then yes, you should change your power cord, but make sure you get the properly gauged or properly sized power cord. It's all about transferring the power. So you hear about people saying, well, power cords lower my noise floor, or they bring out the chocolatiness of the mid-range, or my wife could hear the difference from the kitchen. It's all nonsense. If a power cord really made a difference, it would be something that you can measure. And if you think about it, all of the amplifier measurements we've done, all of the DAC measurements that we've done, all of the preamplifier measurements that we've done have been with stock power cords. My audio precision, which can measure below 120 dB noise floor, has a stock power cord. There's no special power cord on it. So if you look at, for example, look at the Anthem STR amplifier. I like to use that example because it measured really well. That was with a stock power cord. Now I've taken some of these exotic, expensive power cords over the years and I've plugged them into amplifiers, and I tried to measure a difference with my audio precision. I saw no difference. Absolutely no difference. The distortion was the same out of the amplifier. The noise floor was the same out of the amplifier. In fact, the only time, if you think your power supply or your amplifier has noise, you should be able to hear it in a form of a hum or a buzz. And usually when you have a hum, that's a ground loop. That's not going to be fixed with a power cord. That's going to be fixed with fixing your grounding. If you have devices that have 3-prong versus 2-prong connectors on them for the outlet, and you have a difference in potential between the ground and the shield, that can cause a ground loop. But that's a topic for another video. All I want to tell you guys is that power cords are not going to lower the noise floor of your equipment. In fact, That's what the power supply is for, okay? You know, you think about it, people are talking about how they need these exotic geometries in their power cords, but what's connected between the power station to your house? They're using Romex, okay? Actually, they're using power lines, but when it gets to your house, you have regular Romex, and if it's a 15 amp line, that's 14 gauge cable. If it's a 20 amp line, that's 12 gauge Romex. That's just regular cable. There's nothing special about it. So how is the last few feet from your outlet over to your component really going to make the difference? See, the thing is, a lot of people don't understand what the function of a power supply in an amplifier is for. The first thing that power cord sees is usually an isolation transformer. And what does an isolation transformer do? It acts as a shunt. So it will filter out those high frequency noises just by itself. Then you've got your next stage, which is your rectifier circuits, and that converts the AC to DC because all of your electronics work on DC. Then you've got your filter bank that smooths out the ripple. It keeps the supply voltage up constant so it doesn't sag when the power is really being drawn out from that power supply. So the power supply itself usually will take care of 99.9% of your problems. Now, if you have other humming or noise, that's because you have a ground loop or something else, something that the power cord is not going to fix. And you know, I speak from experience because before I was doing Audioholics full time, I worked in a telecom company designing modems and analog front ends for DSL. And we had a regulatory and compliance lab built into the place where we tested at. And I was very fortunate that I was able to do EMI noise mitigation in a lab, in an RFI lab. And I spent years making sure that every design that we came in from the company passed regulatory testing, it passed FCC testing. And I could tell you, in the 4 or 5 years I did that, not once did the cable of the power cord make a difference. In fact, what we did, usually these devices, when there were modems and the power supply was a wall wart, so the transformer was on the outlet side, and we needed to mitigate any EMI or radiated conducted noises, we did so with a ferrite bead wrapped around the cable right when it went into the input of the modem. And those are kind of the same principle as a transformer. It actually blocks out the high frequency noise. And you don't see that in audio components because in the audio components you have all your power supplies built into the chassis where all your noise mitigation is being done. The power cord itself is not going to be the source of the noise. But when you want to deal with radiated and conducted emissions, you're not going to be dealing with that by doing some fancy twisting on your power cord. So the other thing I want to talk about is listening tests. And here's where the biggest flaw happens when you're dealing with power cords. You'll get listeners, you'll get audiophiles online, or you even get the manufacturers that say, oh, I switched out the power cord and the sound just opened up and it became amazing. Well, what they're not telling you is 95%, maybe even 100% of these listening tests are highly flawed listening tests. Number one, they're not done in a blind fashion or even a double blind fashion. So right there's just observational bias. Number two, they're not instantaneous switching. And in order for you to really understand the minute differences that audio components can cause and to do it correctly without having human biases, you need to be able to instantaneous switch from A to B. You can't do that with a power cord because you got to unplug the amplifier or the receiver, got to power it down, got to put the new cord in, got to turn it back on, wait for it to warm up for a couple of seconds. And our auditory memory is just not that good. So it's very easy to fall victim to the placebo, especially when these companies will condition you into telling you what you're going to hear when you switch out your OEM cord to their fancy power cord. So right there, the listening test thing, it's very highly flawed. I've never seen a controlled double-blind listening test prove that a power cord makes a difference. And back to the UL thing, you know, you'll see some of these power cords that are shielded. You almost never see a shielded power cord have a UL rating, simply because when you put shielding on a power cord, it becomes less efficient at dissipating heat, so it becomes harder to get those UL ratings. So my advice to you, stick with the OEM power cord. Don't fall victim to the snake oil. If you want to dress up your system, do it in other ways. The power cord thing is just complete nonsense. I'm sorry to say that. And the only time you should change your power cord is if your original power cord breaks or you need to make a longer extension. And in that case, I would go with a lower gauge power cord if you're making the length longer, because you want to have less I squared R losses. You don't want to dissipate power and heat into the cable. You want to deliver that power with less resistive losses to the power supply of your amplifier or whatever device you're connecting to. So I hope that clears it up. I hope you guys understand that there's a lot of snake oil in this market, and we're trying to bring you the truth. Don't forget about our Patreon channel at patreon.com/audioholics. You get unique content there. We post our videos early there. We're doing some contests we're going to be running soon. We put up a lot of our spreadsheets, our data, test results and stuff that you don't get to see on YouTube or on the editorial site. And let me know down below. Give me some comments. What power cords are you using? Do you cryogenically freeze your cords? Do you raise them above the floor? Do you soak them in kosher chicken fat? Do you pray to your cables? I hope you don't pray to your cables, because the man upstairs, is more important than that. So I think I should wrap this up now. So until next time, my friends, keep listening.
Definitely putting that in B-roll so we can get paid.
Did I hit all the topics?
Yeah.
Hey friends, I'm Gene Delasala with Audioholics. So you guys have been asking me to talk about power cords. I've been debunking speaker cables, interconnects, HDMI. I've been talking about that for a long time, but I've kind of not really directly did a video or a direct article. Let's start over again.
Okay.
Hold on. You want to stop it?
No, I'm going to use that in B-roll.
Okay. Am I in good frame?
Yes.